What's up guys, Ryan here from Mud Gunner. Today we are talking 5.56 versus 300 Blackout, pros and cons and my thoughts. If you want the very quick version of this video, I recommend both, and specifically suppress the 300 Blackout. But that's the very quick version of this video. But yeah, let's get into it. So not everyone knows the purpose of 300 Blackout or necessarily what it is, because right now there is a lot of cheap 300 Blackout options. Like you can get into a 300 Blackout AR for as low as 400 bucks, sometimes less. And we're gonna talk about my thoughts on that because I think it's important to give people information that might help them better decide on what gun to buy, because there's a lot of first timers that are buying 300 Blackouts for their first ARs. And while that's okay, I just want you guys to have an understanding of what I think it's for and kind of what you're getting into. So this doesn't necessarily have to be like gun specific, because this is a SCAR, which isn't an AR. This is a Honey Badger, and I know they're kind of like higher end guns, but just as a whole, like the calibers themselves. So I'll show you what I have here. The mags are loaded, but the guns aren't, but I'll clear them when I pick them up. So as far as 300 Blackout versus 5.56, I'm gonna try to show you guys these as best I can. 300 Blackout is a much bigger round, but it fits in a standard AR-15 magazine, and it's very similar to 5.56 in a lot of ways. So as far as an AR goes, if you're doing a traditional AR-15, the only difference in a 300 Blackout is really your barrel, and you would be running a shorter gas tube for the most part. Aside from that, everything is the same. Your bolt carrier group, your upper, your lower, for the most part your magazines. There are 300 Blackout specific mags, but I can get away with using most 5.56 mags for 300 Blackout. So it's very similar to a 5.56. The difference is you are shooting a 30 caliber bullet, where a 5.56 is a 22 caliber bullet. So I know that trips everyone up, but 5.56 is a 22 caliber bullet. That's why if you're using a cleaning kit, it's normally chambered for 22 rifles, so you can use the same. But I also have some rounds right here. We actually have a couple. This is going to be ammo that I'm testing here soon. So this is a 75 grain 5.56. This is a 190 grain 300 Blackout and a 220 grain. So even though the rounds look different, the casings, some 300 Blackout casings are made from 5.56 casings. So yeah, it's basically the same case diameter, but the bullet is much different. So 300 Blackout is a 7.62 by 35 projectile. And if you think about it, 308 is 7.62 by 51. 7.62 by 39 is obviously another caliber that's pretty popular. So 300 Blackout kind of is in between the 7.62 by 39 and the 308, which is the 7.62 by 51, because the bullet weight can vary pretty greatly. I've seen as low as 110 grain ammo and as high as 240 grain ammo. But the common one is 110 to 220. So where 5.56, your common grain weight is 55 to 77 grain. There are some extremes like lows and highs that can go just above that. But for the most part, most people are shooting a 55 grain 5.56, a 62 grain, or up to like a 75 or 77 grain. The higher the grainage normally, it's like match ammo or hollow point, self-defense hunting, whatnot. But yeah, this is a 75 grain 5.56. So when we're talking what my thoughts on 300 Blackout versus 5.56, I would say 5.56, whoops, dropped the round. I would say 5.56 is a great first rifle round, especially if you're buying an AR-15. I would say 5.56 is going to be better than 300 Blackout because it's more affordable, it's more common. I would say tuning the gun is a little bit easier because not all 300 Blackouts are necessarily reliable with off-the-shelf ammo because there's so many different types of off-the-shelf ammo. For the most part, if you go into a gun store, you're going to find either 223 or 5.56 that's 55 grain. Now you might find that 62 grain green tip, but most guns out of the box can shoot any of those rounds, whether it's 223 or 5.56, in either the 55 grain or the 62 grain. Most ARs out of the box will shoot that. Now with the 300 Blackout, it's not the same because not all stores, our store included, you can't carry every grain weight of 300 Blackout. Well, you can, but most stores don't. So I would say if you're looking for supersonic ammo, which is what most people shoot when they're not shooting suppressed, you're looking at 110 grain to 150 grain ammo. But then if you're running subsonic ammo, that's mainly for a suppressor. So subsonic is normally about 180 grain to 220 grain or even higher. But not every gun store employee is going to know that for you, because like I understand not every gun store employee is a shooter. Not all of them have tested all the rounds. I've been fortunate enough to shoot a lot of different calibers and a lot of variations on guns and ammo and everything. So, and I'm a big 300 Blackout fan. Like I love shooting my Honey Badger suppressed because this was built from the ground up to be a very quiet AR-15. It's a 7-inch barrel with a 8.5-inch suppressor, and it looks pretty sick, but this is also completely functional. It only weighs 7 pounds for the gun with the optic, laser, light, and suppressor. So it's an extremely light setup that runs extremely well. But I know it's kind of pricey. The problem is a lot of 300 Blackouts that people might buy for their first ARs are those $400 to maybe $800 ARs, but the $400 ones, in my opinion, aren't the greatest. Like, we've opened them for customers that have them transferred into our store, and yeah, there's parts already broken, or just, I look at the build quality, I'm like, I don't see that thing lasting more than 1,000 rounds. And a lot of people don't even get that many rounds through their guns. Like, I would say a lot of people shoot maybe 100 to 200 rounds through a gun before they sell it back to us or get rid of it. So on this one, I have thousands of rounds. On most of my 5.56s, I have quite a few rounds. If you're not going to shoot your gun very often, I still think 5.56 is the better route just because of overall reliability in most guns. Like, it's been around for so long, I think most companies have it down for the most part. Now, there's those few companies that just don't make good guns, but for the most part, if you buy a 5.56 AR and you pick it up 10 years from now, it's probably going to shoot that ammo you bought from it. But 300 Blackout is just a little bit more finicky in the wrong gun with the wrong ammo. So again, it runs and I love it, but it just requires a little bit more research and a little bit more trial and error of round, like the specific rounds to that gun that you might be buying. And I also think 300 Blackout really just shines as a suppressed gun. If you're not going to run it suppressed, I don't necessarily think it's worth it. Now, I have more than just experience with this for 300 Blackouts, because I would say the Honey Badger specifically is going to run really good with subsonic ammo, but running supersonic ammo through this, it makes the gun kind of uncomfortable to shoot because it's like doubling your recoil. But I do have a Noveske 10-inch 300 Blackout that is like built like a tank. That AR is way overbuilt, but in a good way. Like, they're very heavy and they're very like sturdy. And right now I'm not running it suppressed, but I will be running it suppressed here soon. But I shoot my supersonic ammo through that unsuppressed that I don't want to shoot through this. And honestly, it's still pretty reliable. I've had a couple ammo malfunctions where it wasn't ejecting the rounds, but then I tried different ammo and it works fine. So with certain supersonic ammo, I was having some feeding issues. I know anyone that hates Noveske might be like, oh yeah, it's just the Noveske problem. But I have tested the other ammo and it works pretty well. But I run 150 grain ammo through my Noveske 300 Blackout, and I'm hitting 200 yards pretty easily on steel. I haven't really pushed it past 200 yards, so the distance capability is there with the right ammo, but if I were to run subs through it, unsuppressed, it may not run reliably. So that's the thing. If you're running suppressed or unsuppressed, you gotta find that right ammo that works, which if you're running suppressed, subsonic ammo is normally the best. If you're running unsuppressed, supersonic ammo. So again, it's just, if it's your first AR, I think it's a lot of work to kind of get it running right. So I would say 5.56 again is probably going to be what I recommend as a first AR. But with 300 Blackout suppressed, nothing is quieter. There is no rifle round, like standard rifle round. Like, I know the 8.6 Blackout should be pretty quiet. I haven't shot it yet. But there's no standard rifle round that really competes with the 300 Blackout. Now, I did just get a AR-15 chambered in 7.62x39. It's the CMMG Banshee. It's a 12.5-inch pistol. I am going to be trying some subsonic ammo through that suppressed next to the 300 Blackout suppressed, because I'm just curious, because it is 7.62x39 versus 7.62x35. But the problem with subsonic 7.62x39 is it's very hard to get. It's not common. It's steel-cased ammo, so I don't want to be running too much steel-cased ammo through my suppressor because it's just going to wear it out over time. But yeah, 300 Blackout, in my opinion, is still going to blow it out of the water. I just want to try it out. And if you're not running suppressed for your first gun, that's perfectly okay. I would say a 5.56 gun is still going to be better because you can add a suppressor later on. So what I have here is I have my Scar 16. This has been one of my dream guns. I talk about it on the channel a lot. But this is a 5.56 Scar. It takes standard AR mags. Now the only thing that's really AR compatible is the magazines. Everything else is proprietary, but I do have plenty of 5.56 ARs too. But 5.56 can be suppressed effectively. Again, it's nowhere near as quiet as 300 Blackout, but if it's your first AR, chances are you're not going to be suppressing it right away. So yeah, I would say a 5.56 gun makes a great first gun. And if you want to suppress it down the road, or you're planning on buying a suppressor, what I would recommend is buy a 30 cal suppressor, which is what this is, because now if you have a 30 cal suppressor, you can run it on a 5.56, and then if you get another 300 Blackout AR, you can run it on that, or you could do different uppers. So I know these are both kind of proprietary builds, like this upper does not go on like a standard AR lower, and obviously this is its own, but if you're running a 5.56 AR, you can buy a 300 Blackout upper for it and run this suppressor on both. because this is just a quick detach suppressor. I can pop it off, and mine's a little stuck because I was shooting it this weekend. But this suppressor can mount to any gun that has the right muzzle device for it. So again, I would say 5.56 would be a good first gun, a first rifle specifically to run suppressed. And then you can buy a 300 Blackout upper for it and then run the subsonic ammo, and it'll be noticeably quieter. And then you can kind of play around with it from there. So I know that's kind of a lot of information. Again, I love both calibers, but we're just talking 5.56 versus 300 Blackout. If it's your first gun, 5.56. If you're kind of getting into suppressors, that's when I would go to 300 Blackout. Because the other option is, let's say you're not running suppressed, 300 Blackout's pretty pricey. It's about 80 cents or higher per round. Now 7.62x39, which is what most AK shoots, that used to be extremely cheap, like $6 per box of 20, whatever that breaks down to per round. It was very cheap. Now right now it's pretty expensive due to all the basically import restrictions, or just the obviously the conflict going on overseas, because Russia and Ukraine were the main suppliers of like Wolf ammo, Tula ammo. They were the main suppliers. So that's kind of dried up. Now there is still ammo coming in. We actually still get Wolf ammo here and there, which is Russian made. So that's probably just backstock shipments or whatnot, because we just recently got some in at our store, but it's a lot more expensive than it used to be. So I would say 7.62x39 is no longer the great budget round to shoot. I would say for a battle style rifle, right? Because everyone wanted 5.56 or 7.62x39, and it was always cheaper for the AK ammo. 5.56 I would say is the new go-to round for relatively inexpensive shooting. I know it's not cheap right now because of all prices, but that's just something you got to live with. But between 7.62x39 or 300 Blackout or even 308, they're all somewhat close in price right now. 308 goes up and down. Like sometimes we get a lot of ball ammo for $16 a box, sometimes it's $25 a box. It kind of varies depending on the year, but there are plenty of times where I've seen 308 selling for the same price as 300 Blackout. And a decent 308 is going to cost just as much as the decent 300 Blackout. So at that point, I would say maybe just kind of figure out what you want the gun to be for. If you're not going to suppress it, but you want a 30 caliber gun, 308 could be a good option for you, and you're going to spend the money on the ammo, but you're probably not going to blow through it as fast as 300 Blackout, because 308 is a much bigger round. Let me pull out some of these boxes here. So got this kind of prepared for this video. I didn't know exactly where I was going to take it, but we're just kind of going. So I'm going to show you the difference between 308, which is 7.62x51, 7.62x39, and the 300 Blackout. So these are all 30 caliber rounds, but they're all slightly different. I got a cover so you can maybe see. But so we have 308 on my right, you have 7.62x39 in the middle, and 300 Blackout on my left. So at different times, these are all the same price, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. I have seen pricing coming down on some of it, but if you're not going to suppress it, but you want a 30 caliber round, 308 would actually be a cool option, because you can get like an AR-10 platform. You can set up like a longer range setup, and your 5.56 you can just run however you want, either short range, mid range, whatever. But yeah, if you're not, I just dropped that. If not to beat a dead horse, but again, 300 Blackout I would say is going to shine suppress. If you're not going to suppress it, then maybe look into those other two. As far as the main caliber that I would recommend for a semi-auto rifle, it's got to be 5.56. This is just, it's America's cartridge. I know it's used all around the world, but it is America's rifle round, and I wouldn't choose anything over this for my main rifle setup. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. You can do with it what you will. I own all these calibers, I shoot all these calibers, but I would say at the end of the day, if I could only pick one, it would have to be 5.56. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Go check out my videos on these guns. Again, this is the quietest gun I own, and it's super sweet, but it does have its place. Now, as far as a quick note, as far as like home defense, right, I think either one of these are fine. So in my magazines, for this, I have multiple mags loaded up with hollow point 5.56, which is effective. 300 Blackout close range, it's a pretty nasty round. So this is 208 grain Hornady AMAX ammo, and this magazine weighs twice as much because it's a 208 grain bullet versus a 55 grain bullet. So yeah, much heavier on the magazine, so it's gonna hit with some force, but again, both are effective. I like them both, and I recommend them both in the right setting and right build. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for my next video.